One of my favorite speakers, influencers, authors on this topic is a man named Jeff Schaefer of New St. Andrews, the Hale Institute, and he talks about the downstream effects of Obergefell. And I
I'm
love.
laughing because I was on a call with him 15 minutes ago.
Were you really?
Yeah, he's my legal advisor and spearheading the legal portion of our effort to challenge Obergefell. But keep going because I love hearing other people try to say what Jeff Schaefer says. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I'm not going to try.
No, I love it.
I wouldn't even begin to try. However, he does speak on this topic so movingly, and to talk about the downstream legal effects of the way Obergefell reframes marriage. Maybe we could talk about that for a moment, because that's a message I would love to communicate from him, but I just can't do it justice the way that he does.
Yeah, nobody can do it justice the way he does. I spend a lot of time listening to Jeff and then trying to figure out how can I translate that so that I can understand it and other people can understand it. But so spoiler, my nonprofit, Them Before Us, is spearheading a coalition to challenge gay marriage. And it is going to
Praise
have
God.
a three-prong approach. One of them is a legal strategy, a judicial strategy that actually has the possibility of success. And so far, no organization has even tried this yet. Why? Because everybody does it wrong. Not to say we're the only ones that get it, but everybody else does it wrong. They all look at it from the adult's perspective. No more. We're looking at this from the child's perspective. And so Jeff is heading up my legal team to create that judicial pathway for success. But it's not enough to just change the law. We have to change public opinion. So I am going to let all the influencers decide. Everybody in my coalition gets to decide what they say about their involvement and when. But basically, I have personalities at every major conservative media outlet on board with this. We're all going to change the way we talk about marriage. It's not a sacred institution. It is, but we're not talking about it that way. It's not a states' rights issue. It's not a matter of adult bonds. It is justice for children. And we're going to change the way everybody thinks and talks about this. And then I also have a church team that is going to develop curriculum so that Christians do exactly what you and I were just talking about, Will, understand that their heritage is child protection. That if they want to join into the great cloud of witnesses, of those who have gone before them, they have to stand up and protect kids. In every way, they're being victimized. But it's not foot binding, and it's not female genital mutilation in the traditional sense here. It is marriage and family and parenthood issues where they're being victimized. So that's what we're doing. Like, we are going to retake marriage on behalf of children. And no one has tried this for 10 years, but we're going to do it.
Well, praise God. I think that's a brilliant approach to it, because justice for children is the sort of thing that you can say to somebody and they don't really have the option of going like, I don't really care. I mean, they can. I mean, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. But there is, particularly like Jeff Schaefer's breakdown of the Dave Rubin conversation with Jordan Peterson, and all that follows legally from, well, if we define marriage this way, then it means X and Y and Z, and this for personhood and children, and the devastation that will continue to have on the family. So, and that's something that I think touches everybody quite deeply these days.
Well, if it was only the children who were being raised and purchased and sold and made intentionally motherless or fatherless, I wish that was enough to get people to engage on this issue. But we're all driven by self-interest. And there is a temptation to say, well, it's not my kid. But Jeff Schaefer makes clear, and I'm going to talk about in my NatCon speech, which I think has already happened if this airs when you say it's going to air.
Yes.
I make the connection that this is not just about other people's children. It's not just about the kids who lose their mother or father. Like Jeff Schaefer points out, if gay marriage is legal reality, it requires the downgrading of the preeminence of the biological bond between parents and children. And so that means that your own relationship, my relationship, I've got 4 kids, 1 is adopted. My relationship with the 3 biological kids is weaker now than it was 10 years ago. My adopted relationship was sort of recognized through another pathway, but now that pathway is being obliterated in the name of adult interest, an adult right to acquire an unrelated child. And so I hope that communicating gay marriage actually weakened and is on its way to completely eroding your own claim to your own natural children. I hope that will be enough for people to go, okay, maybe I wasn't going to engage because that child is made intentionally fatherless because they're being raised by a single woman or a double woman or triple women or a single man or a double man or triple couple, a throuple. But
Yeah.
if they're coming for my kids, maybe I am going to say something about it now.
Well, especially because you live in Washington. Isn't Washington one of the states where they can take your kid under a certain age if they claim some transgender identity and you don't want to know, something like that?
Bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely nuts out here. I've had friends who have kids with mental health crises or who were starting to dabble in or adopt LGBTQ identity. And they're like, thanks for letting us know. And a month later, they're living in Idaho because there is a really legitimate threat to your own claim to your own children, especially after the age of 13.
Was it Hillary Clinton who said it takes a village to raise a child, which was sort of pointing in that direction long before anyone knew what she meant?
Really, most of the cultural battles that we are facing today, the transgender stuff, the gay marriage stuff, the commercial surrogacy stuff, even the sex ed stuff, those are all manifestations of one foundational question. And that question is, to whom do children belong?
Hmm.
To whom do they belong? And the government's answer is they belong to us. They belong to teachers. They belong to activists. They belong to doctors. They belong to whoever the surrogacy contract has assigned them to. But that is not the right answer. Children belong to their own mother and to their own father. It's on that basis that we have parental rights, but it's also on that basis that we say children can't be commodified, distributed, and sold like common objects. So we have to get down to the question of, is there something special about the natural parent-child relationship? If you answer that question, you get the right answer to whether or not a child can emancipate themselves at the age of 13 and head down to an LGBTQ safe house and get testosterone from Planned Parenthood.
Oh, frightening,
Uh-huh.
frightening. The idea that's coming up for me is that it's around the issue of no fault divorce. So I'm going to sneeze in a second. I'm going to try not to do it. But so around the issue of like that a woman, and I think this was from your NatCon talk, was it perhaps last year? If I remember watching that talk, I'm not sure if it was from NatCon, but the idea that a child has a right to their father, and you can't just divorce, dad for whatever reason. Does this apply to that subject as well?
No fault divorce was the original redefinition of marriage. That you've actually seen an overhaul of marriage and family in the cultural space, the legal space, and the technological space. And when you want to talk about the unraveling of the family in the legal space, it was no fault divorce that did that first.
Hmm.
And so, yes, no fault divorce totally undermines children's right to their mother and father. And usually it's the non custodial parent that sees the most erosion in their acknowledgement, relationship with, access to the child. And there's about 40% of cases children won't see their non-custodial parent, their father, ever again after 2 years. I mean, oftentimes a no-fault divorce doesn't mean splitting time between mom and dad's house 50-50. It often means losing a relationship with dad altogether.
Yeah.
So this is an egregious violation. It hurts children. There was just a huge study that came out a couple weeks ago that said that divorce is an increased risk of like 60% teen parenthood, which we knew about, like a 40% increased chance of criminality, which we knew about. Like those two things are almost the predictable result of father loss or father absence, but a 45% more likely of early death when your parents divorce. This is such a shock to a child's system. It actually shortens the telomeres, the end caps of their chromosomes. Divorce impacts children at every cell of their body. And it's harmful to them, but it harmed our concept of marriage. Because what is marriage? Why is marriage so different from every other adult relationship? 3 things. Number 1, it is monogamous. There's only supposed to be one of each. And obviously, we're kind of on the precipice of normalizing polygamous, right?
Mm.
Polyamory, group love. That's making, that's now moving into the marriage and family space. But we already, through gay marriage, removed the complementarity that it should be a man and a woman, that there is a complement between the genders. But the first one that was to go was the permanence, the idea that I'm going to commit to you all my life. What man is joined together, let no one separate. Okay, till death do us part, as the vows say. So we stripped that in 1969, and when California passed no-fault divorce for the first time, and then every state in the union followed suit.
Mhm.
And that communicated that instead of there needing to be somebody at fault for breaking marriage through adultery, abandonment, addiction, abuse, now you could end the marriage for no reason. Nobody needed to be at fault. And what that did is it said marriage is no longer an institution centered around creating and raising children. Now it's a vehicle of adult fulfillment. Now, if you're unhappy, it can cease to be a marriage. And then the gays were like, oh, well, if it's just about happiness, married to somebody else of the same sex makes me happy. And the polygamists are like, oh, if it's just about happiness, married to 4 other people makes me happy. So you actually don't get marriage as an institution centered around the well-being of children until you address no-fault divorce.
Amazing. I mean, you touched on it right there. Like, I think that's an idea that lives inside so many different people's heads, that marriage is about personal fulfillment, adult happiness, and the idea that marriage could be about something so much more and so different from that, about covenants, about commitments. That is almost anathema to our culture today, that anything could be considered binding on the individual that transcends them.
It's a very us before them idea, right? This institution exists for me. If I'm fulfilled, then I get it. If I'm unfulfilled, I can toss it. And that is the problem with redefining marriage in the divorce space or the same-sex marriage space. It exalts adult desire above everything else. And when adult desire is king, children will always be the required sacrifice.
Amen. And that's literally the teaching of history. Literally the teaching of history, whether it be Aztec temples or abortion clinics, as the meme goes. So you mentioned your NatCon talk coming up, which will be in about a week, I suppose. So at the time when this airs, you will have given the speech. I hear a rumor that you're going to be throwing some bombs from the stage, lighting the room on fire. Do you want to talk a little bit about that speech and let people know what at this point they would have missed?
Yes. I don't know. At this point, it's up on the Them Before Us Substack. So if you want to go, you can read the speech at our Them Before Us Substack. Subscribe, because there will be more to come. But what I'm doing is I'm connecting the dots for people that they're not sure that these things should be connected. So the first thing I'm going to do in that speech is outline a few headline-grabbing stories that a lot of you guys are probably aware of. For example, the 21 children who were removed from the California home where the 2 CCP, Chinese Communist Party members, were raising these children, 15 of which were under the age of 3, all of which were created through surrogacy. And they had some kind of like reception desk at the front of the house where people would come and go all through the day. And the children were removed from the home because one of the babies, like a 2-month-old, was seen at the hospital because the nanny was like shaking the baby. And they went in and they discovered this harem-like situation of infants in this home. So that was a story that, yes, this hit the headlines in July. So I'm going to share that story, and then I'm going to say, gay marriage did that. Then I'm going to share the story of the 74-year-old man, also in California, who had created a cage-like structure in his upstairs loft to contain his 2 6-year-old sons, conceived through IVF, born through a surrogate, who had the children removed from his home. And I'm going to say, gay marriage did that. And then I'm going to describe a situation in Arkansas where 2 women had a child through anonymous sperm donor and then demanded and got from the Supreme Court the ability to erase the child's biological father from the child's birth certificate, in essence saying that this child doesn't have a father, and the state endorsed that level of lying. And I will say, gay marriage did that. And then I'm going to talk about the situation where a lot of people saw the 2 gay men kissing their surrogate-born child every month of the child's first year as the child grew. And then it came out that one of those men was a convicted sex offender. And I am going to say, gay marriage did that. Now, how can gay marriage be responsible for children created through a heterosexual foreign couple, a single retiree, 2 lesbian women, and 2 gay men? How can gay marriage have done all of that? And it's because marriage, the definition of marriage, historically, not just in our country, but all across most countries, but certainly we got it through our common law tradition from England, like pre-colonial times. Marriage functions as the sun at the center of a constellation of marriage and family laws. And when you swap out a procreative, life-giving understanding of marriage at the center of the universe, and you put in a definition of the family that's non-procreative, centered around the identity of the adults, The entire cosmos has to realign. And you can no longer have bigoted ideas like infertility simply being something that affects heterosexuals. Now you have to have infertility that can affect single people or same sex couples, so that insurance agencies have to pay for the manufacturing of motherless or fatherless children in the name of equality. Now you can't have words like mother and father in parenthood laws because that feels like hate speech. So you have to gender neutralize everything.